Right, I'm assuming if you've clicked on this video, you've seen The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, so this is your spoiler warning. Okay, so the first thing I need to clarify for you guys, just in case you didn't know, is that the events of the show are fictional. Yes, I repeat, they are not real. Beth Harmon is unfortunately not a real person. She is, however, a product of fantastic writing, brilliant direction, and a marvelous performance from Anya Taylor-Joy. If this is the first time you're finding out this news, don't feel stupid, because I thought I was seeing real people and real events unfold whilst watching the show. And I'm still not entirely sure whether or not to feel somewhat sad by the fact that this story is fictional, or the complete opposite. Well, nevertheless, that's completely irrelevant, because in this video, I'm going to be talking through why The Queen's Gambit is certainly one of the most refreshing, brilliantly constructed, and just f***ing amazing new pieces of television I've consumed in quite some time. So without further ado, let's begin.
Sagrayan.
So briefly before we do get talking about the actual show itself, I feel somewhat compelled to talk to you guys about my relationship with chess as a game. I actually can't remember how or when I first learned to play chess. I mean, I must have been pretty young. Hell, maybe I was even taught in the basement by my primary school caretaker. By the way, primary school is basically elementary school if you're not from the UK. But anyways, what I do remember is that I had 3 friends whom I specifically used to play chess with back in the day. Sometimes, when I just wasn't in the mood for football at break or lunchtime, the 4 of us would just go to the library, steal a couple of chess sets, and play for as long as we could. I think it was around the 8 or 9-year-old mark we found ourselves doing this a lot more frequently, until one of the teachers at school noticed us and entered us into a chess tournament. The 4 of us went to this tournament, during school hours by the way, which was the coolest thing ever because everyone else in our class was super jealous that we got to miss lessons. But anyways, we turned up at this event, and to say that the tournament had a surprising turnout is a huge understatement. There were hundreds of kids from maybe over 100 different schools, all competing in a room reminiscent of something like the Great Hall from Hogwarts. It was incredibly intimidating, but also very exciting at the same time. I do remember winning a few matches, but overall we unfortunately did not win the whole tournament or anything like that. What I do recall from that period of my childhood was this thrilling rush I got from competing against new faces in new tournaments, and even though it was kind of short-lived, I always remembered how great it felt. I guess you can kind of say that The Queen's Gambit might have triggered a little nostalgia of when I used to play a lot. Anyways, a couple of years later, I fell out of touch with chess and just stopped completely. It's only been in recent years that I've picked up a board and started playing again, albeit just for fun with some friends. I love chess. Some people think it's boring as but to me it's such an engaging game to really utilize strategic thinking, and when you can get to a good enough level, it genuinely is really enjoyable. The Queen's Gambit is a show that no one, including me, asked for, but I'm so happy that it exists. Coming away from the show, I'm so impressed with what I've witnessed, and it's about time I share my thoughts on why I think the show is so great. Let's start off with the performances, because to any story, they are integral in creating a strong connection between the viewer and the characters. Anya Taylor-Joy. As one of the best and certainly one of my favourite rising actresses in recent years, Anya Taylor-Joy has been great in pretty much everything I've seen her in. Morgan, Split, The Witch, Peaky Blinders, even The New Mutants a couple of months ago, which whilst I didn't think was amazing, she was hands down one of the best aspects of that film. By the way, if you do want to check out my review for The New Mutants, it will be linked in the description box down below. But anyways, what I'm trying to get at here is that it's like with every new role Anya takes on, she makes it a career best, because in this show, The Queen's Gambit, she is nothing short of phenomenal. Personally, it's the best I've seen from her, and it's for sure one of my favourite performances of the year. With Anya Taylor-Joy, she's playing a character that, despite having a lot of internal conflict, is for the majority a very composed and level-headed person. Beth Harmon doesn't really make any massive outbursts or anything crazy like that because she's very introverted and often closes herself off from everyone else. Even to the people she feels very comfortable with, she sometimes struggles to let in. There's also the external pressures of not showing emotion in this highly competitive world and how it can be considered somewhat weak if you do. Because Beth is a young woman amongst a very male-dominated environment, she understands this better than anyone. I guess what I'm trying to say is that even though the Beth Harmon character is very quiet and very reserved for a lot of the time, this really doesn't stop Anya Taylor-Joy from shining through in her performance. To put it simply, she is brilliant, and I think you could just watch the show for her performance alone because it's that good. Aside from Anya, the cast of The Queen's Gambit is fairly new to me, with a couple of exceptions. A few familiar faces in the form of some great supporting performances from Harry Melling, aka Dudley Dursley from Harry Potter, as well as the man who simply does not age, Thomas Brodie-Sangster. I say that because the guy is 30 years old and has always looked no older than 20. I also really like the guy who played Borgoff on the show. He's more or less the main villain, the main obstacle for Beth, and I think that he brought this very striking and very intimidating presence that the story and the characters needed in order to really develop. But yeah, I thought pretty much all the characters on the show were very well written and acted, particularly Thomas Brodie-Sangster as Benny Watts, who was definitely one of the more likable personalities and certainly a favourite of mine from the series. Now, something I definitely couldn't miss talking about was the show's brilliant cinematography by Steven Meisler. You know, for a story that revolves around such an intimate game, that being chess, the cinematography of The Queen's Gambit is notably very cinematic. As a result, when watching the show, I didn't just feel as if I was watching characters traveling from location to location, going from tournament to tournament. I wasn't just watching Beth embark on this strange yet exciting new chapter of her life. I was very much living it alongside her. From the transitioning of an orphanage upbringing to youthful adult life in suburban Kentucky, from the basic buildings of high schools to the lavish locations of competitive chess tournaments, from the marble-rich bars and dining rooms to the silk and mahogany-covered hotel suites, it's the show's seamless integration of lush cinematography, grand production design, and chic costume choices that constantly kept transporting me further and further into this exciting era of the 50s and 60s. I know that this is slightly off topic, but The Queen's Gambit also plays host to some of the best editing I've seen all year. It may sound surprising, but some of the most memorable moments of the show for me are the ones where two characters are just merely sitting down and playing chess. I recall particular scenes that are intercut to some really great song choices and quirky board animations, like here for example. It really is astonishing how chess, a topic that a lot of people would find incredibly slow and boring, is made to look so dynamic and feel so incredibly engaging. But back to the cinematography. I love the use of these super immersive long takes as characters enter a new location for the first time, like here in Vegas or here in Mexico City. It allows time to really absorb the stakes and the grandeur of these incredible environments. Similarly, I love the shift to a handheld style in this final scene of the series, emphasizing Beth's newfound sense of identity after triumphing against Borgoff and claiming the #1 title for chess in the world. It's the variation in visual technique in addition to a lush pastel color palette that earns The Queen's Gambit its classic and somewhat signature unique visual style. This is a relatively short section, but I couldn't not mention it at least briefly. The score by Carlos Rafael Rivera is one of the best classical scores I've heard in quite some time. I loved it, and as soon as the show was over, I immediately added it to my music library. It's weird because it's something I would have expected a composer like Alexandre Desplat to create. There's a certain elegance that can only be found in this genre of music, an elegance that is more or less perfect in reflecting the refined character of Beth Harmon, and even more so for reflecting the strategic yet stylish world of competitive chess. Now, when I do these video essay style projects, I don't normally conclude on something like themes. I normally have it at the start, but in this case, I thought it was a nice way to round off the video. Now, I could probably dedicate hours to just talking about the complex themes that The Queen's Gambit explores in its 7 episodes runtime, because there's just so many great ones. To name a few: obsession, feminism and social adversity during the 50s and 60s, elements of a coming-of-age story, and even the familiar beats of the ongoing battle against alcohol and drug addiction that, chances are, you've probably seen before in previous films or shows. However, I want to discuss the theme that surfaces from Beth Harmon specifically, the theme of loneliness, which I think can be further broken down into 3 different character traits. Let's go all the way back to the start of the story. What do we learn about Beth from the opening episode of the show? Well, number 1, her mother has been killed in a car accident and her father is nowhere to be seen. Losing your parents at such a young age is a terrible thing to happen to anyone, so immediately we sympathize for Beth the orphan. Number 2, she finds it difficult to connect with people. Although this is something not everyone on the planet can relate to, we all have moments where we wish we could just be alone and left to deal with our lives ourselves. This makes introverted characteristics somewhat relatable to the majority of people, and since we understand this perspective, we can naturally take the side of Beth the introvert. And lastly, number 3, she has a natural attraction to chess and is able to learn and master the game extremely quickly, so henceforth we have Beth the prodigy. Now obviously this isn't something we can all relate to. In fact, very few of us can say that we are the best at something. I mean, I've only begun this YouTube channel this year. I have a long way to go and there are probably hundreds if not thousands of people who do this a lot better than me. Fortunately, what a lot of us can connect with regarding the specific characteristic of Beth is the desire to be better in whatever it is we do. Beth is a chess prodigy, but she doesn't just automatically become the best in the world. She has to work her way up, she has to lose, she has to try again. This character segment, I think The Queen's Gambit explores brilliantly, and without a doubt I found it to be one of the most interesting and captivating aspects of the whole show. The challenges even someone as gifted and talented as a prodigy like Beth Harmon has to go through to achieve what they want. The challenges that ultimately cause her to grow as a character. By the end of the show, Beth has gone from a shy, introverted, lonely girl to a woman who persevered through struggles, endured tragic losses, learnt from mistakes, and even came to accept the help of friends, all to become the very best in a sport that she lives for. So this leaves us with Beth the orphan, Beth the introvert, and Beth the prodigy. 3 layers of beautiful writing all working simultaneously to meld story, character and theme together. Beth Harmon is without a doubt the core of this story, and normally I don't like to get all sentimental, but her tale, fictional or not, is extremely inspiring. If there's anything I've learned from Beth Harmon, it's that talent can only take you so far. Be confident in yourself, be dedicated to your passion, and use your failures to get even better. Okay guys, those are pretty much my overall thoughts on The Queen's Gambit. If you still can't tell by now, I think this series is brilliant. It pretty much came out of nowhere, but I absolutely loved it. Despite it ending perfectly, I really hope Netflix make a 2nd season because I'm already hungry to see more. But what I do want to know is, what did you think of The Queen's Gambit? Did you love it as much as I did? What were some of your favorite moments? Was there anything specific in the show that I didn't cover in this video that you would like to mention? Let me know in the comments section down below, and don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Also guys, prior to experiencing this show, I finally watched Breaking Bad for the first time, so be sure to check out my video on that too. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description box down below. And just one last thing before I end the video, if you love movies, TV shows, just cinema in general, be sure to hit the subscribe button to jump on board the Popcorn Podcast channel. Guys, I've been Dylan, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you very soon in the next.